All right, so we're recording, and I was thinking about this earlier. I think it should go on my gravestone, the words "I'm excited," because I think I have said that more than any other sentence in my entire life. And every time I introduce someone, I say, like, I am genuinely excited about the call that we're going to have today. Welcome to Psychedelic Sundays. This is the fourth one we've run, and we're having a lot of fun doing it and a lot of fun diving in with some really amazing human beings from all over the world with different experiences, with different ways of understanding things and sharing their gifts with the world. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of background into Adam, but of course, Adam has way more to say about that than me. But I was thinking before, like, Adam and I have been, like, we've been doing this circle where we're in each other's vortex, but we've never actually met each other face to face. And this will be the first time that we've had a face-to-face discussion, even though we've done voice memos, we've done messages. You were in Australia in the city that I lived in when I was there for a while, and you even stayed in the house that I ended up moving into a couple of weeks after you left. So we definitely have been in each other's vortex, and I feel like we're even more intimately connected now because your mom is actually editing my very first book, which is such a beautiful connection that we have. And you know, about that, I'm thinking about my interactions with your mom, who just, by the way, is such a sweetheart. What a gorgeous soul. You know, I was thinking about how you must have been on quite an interesting journey because your upbringing, I'm assuming, was quite different to the path that you're walking now. Just the other day, you know, your mom, she was saying, "What's a mushroom chocolate?" Because that's in my book, and so she didn't know. She said she's still learning. She's still learning a lot about this world of alternative healing and plant medicines and coaching and so many things. So your journey, I'm assuming, is quite an interesting one. And you know, the other thing I was thinking about when I was thinking about you and just following a little bit of Adam's journey on social media is I feel like you're a soul who has a lot of resilience, because I've watched you come forward and then something seems to change in your life, and then you come out with something and then something seems to change again. And so I have this really deep sense that you're a soul with a lot of resilience, and that a lot of your gifts and a lot of your understandings that you now share with the world are coming from an interesting journey of knockback, and then coming, you know, the phoenix been born out of the ashes again. So this is just an assumption. But as I was sitting with this, thinking about today, I was having this beautiful feeling that we're going to talk a little bit about, you know, your journey, what you've had to go through, and how that's brought you into this space of just being such a kind, caring facilitator of helping other people to find the light within inside of them. So, you know what? Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you to everybody else who's joining us. It's such a delight to have you guys here. We're really, you know, if Adam's anything like me, and I have this sneaky suspicion he is, we love these conversations. We love sharing these things. We love sharing our hearts. We love sharing our experiences in a really authentic way, so that hopefully that can inspire others to do the same thing. So Adam, I'm going to pass it over to you. And the first question I want to ask is, you know, what happened in your life, and maybe, you know, what were the most significant moments in your life that really sent you on a pathway of awakening? Were there any particular moments that were like a catalyst in your journey that changed the direction of your life and put you on this path of seeking something? Or has it just always been like this for you?
I just always love that question. First of all, thank you so much. I'm already having fun, so thanks for just facilitating the opportunity for all of us to connect in this way. And I actually think it's fun. I don't know any of the people who are on here, so it's fun to like tune into everybody's energy. So thanks for showing up. Thanks for being here. That question always feels tough for most people to answer, I would assume. You know, just if anybody was asked this question and they were the ones speaking right now. And I love what you said before I answer that question about what feels like the death, rebirth, recurring cycles that we all go through, right? It's like, to me, the way that I look at it in this moment is something you sort of ask yourself, and maybe since this is Psychedelic Sunday, sometimes I have to go back. How did I start this plant medicine path? Like, how did I even start this psychedelic path? How did I feel catalyzed into walking in this way? Because it seems like it was always there in a way, but it just happened. And the beauty is, the way I look at life is, the gift of whatever the experience was, which you're right, was all different and all very tumultuous and all very disruptive. And I'll go into that a little bit. But the beauty of it is, the deeper life took me, then the deeper the plants took me. And then the deeper that the plants took me, the deeper that I was able to move back into life in a different way. And so I just believe in taking from the experience that we're gifted. And so my awakening was probably not, the way that I look at the awakening is a little bit different, you know, than most people. I would say that the awakening has been like some progressive, and maybe people will resonate with this, some progressive series of events since the time I was a little kid. I kind of feel like since I was a little kid, I was awakening, you know, I was awakening with too much energy as a little kid that was like at 5 or 6 years old, diagnosed with ADD, with ADHD, and like, you know, being reined in with all of my energy, not understanding how to channel it through myself, not understanding, and actually prescribed with Ritalin and different medicines in order to like contain my energy. So for those people who at a young age were either diagnosed with one thing or another, anxiety, ADD, depression, whatever it is, I think and I believe what I know to be true based on my experience of how I see things is that those were the events that catalyzed the awakening. Because when I was 12 years old, I took myself off medication, right? I was like a medicated little kid for having ADHD and being kind of crazy and hyperactive, which I was. But I can see now it's just that nobody knew how to teach me how to express the energy correctly. So I had this awakening moment when I was actually 12 years old, where I went into the nurse's office at my school and I took the pills I was supposed to take and I threw them in the trash can. And I said, I'm not interested in like doing this anymore. And the nurse like, what? I said, I'm not interested in isolating myself. I'm not interested in being treated like I'm different. I'm not interested in containing something which I know is not wrong. I'm not interested in like medicating for something I don't even know what this medication is. And so in a way, and it's interesting you brought, you know, obviously family. For much of my family, they're on a much more traditional Western path of working with things with different diagnoses and being medicated and diagnosed with them in a traditional sense. I feel like my journey being put into this family, you know, before we started, you brought up Matt Kahn, who always has good teachings on why do we get put into these crazy families? You know, what is the contract we're signing to be put in these families? Why are we here? And for me, I've always believed, when I touch really deeply into the psychedelics, one of the things I keep learning over and over was I was put into this family in order to take a very different path, in order to find natural medicines that can guide me to actually expressing and bringing out this energy. But as a result, I have to move through all of the things which have been like generationally pushed down by all of the medicine. So that's looked like a lot of different things. But it always feels like something significant to share, because yes, you know, when I started this deeper plant medicine journey, you know, a few years back, it was catalyzed by very, very deep like death cycle in my life, right? So I had all at once, all within the course of 3 weeks, I had the organization which I built for 5 years. I was running a nonprofit which I founded and led. That was being closed. First, I was fired from my own organization a week after I had separated from a relationship, a month after I had gone through a miscarriage in the same relationship, and all at the same. So everything kind of closed down in my life at the same time. Right along the same time as all of this was happening within this month, I went through, and I don't know if we were connected at this point, Holly, I went through this experience where one of my posts went viral and I was receiving like a viral attack from like thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So I found that's a lot of how my life works. And that has been a lot of what propels the plant medicine journeys, is that for those of us like on this shamanic path, everything seems to die at once. At least that's true in my experience. Everything seems to die at once. It's not one thing falls away, the relationship closes. Everything seems to die at once. And so I think that my understanding from here is that I think that's because I like to meet it all at once. I'd rather actually, if you asked me, I'd rather go into the ceremony and clear and cut through and like transform and open up and receive what I need to receive from all of it, rather than moving sequentially and pulling something out and expanding it and making it last a long time, which just really elongates the pain, right? It just elongates the pain and the suffering. So there's been a few different experiences like that. That was the first of many, and that's happened in cycles for the last few years, just like you said, but I don't think it's different than any of us, right? We all go through our own form of death cycles, our own form of closures, whether it's relationships or businesses or, you know, receiving persecution. It just will happen. This all happened at once. And that really, really catalyzed my journey of like, okay, I don't feel like I have any other choice but this path. I'm going to walk it.
I've been like a ninja in the night and moved positions to see if my
wow, look at that. That's not a Zoom background. That's a real plant background.
Ninja. But the whole time I was listening to that, you know, I was resonating, and every time I meet someone, you know how the further you go on this path, the more you're like, I'm really looking back at myself. My parents, or my mother specifically, ended up in a very traditional path of westernized medicine for mental health. And they tried to diagnose me, not with ADHD when I was younger, but with bipolar, because I was able to just scale the emotional, you know, chart so easily. And it would be like, when I was down, I was down. And when I was high, I was so high and so creative and so like excited. And then it was both of those two extremes. And I had a very similar moment. It wasn't as early as you. That was amazing that you knew such a young age. I think I was probably at 16 when they gave me medication. And I remember having that same moment where I was looking at it and thinking, this is not the solution to somebody who feels a lot. This doesn't feel right. So I threw it in the bin. I had the same reaction as you. And, you know, later on in my life, I found the shamanic view of mental health, which was an amazing document, which I have posted in the Earth Pulse group. But that really did change my life. And I know you touch on this, and I've seen you post somewhere, I think as well, or we're talking about it somewhere, where, you know, what we deem as mental illness in the Western world is seen as some sort of awakening or an open channel. I heard you say this somewhere, like it's an open channel in the kind of the shamanic view. But on top of that, instead of demonizing the situations we've come from, what I'm hearing you say is that we chose this for a reason, and that we most likely had some sort of say in where we turned up in order to guide ourselves into the lives that we knew that we wanted to come and live being here. So just resonating with you deeply here. You said you wanted to, you know, and something else I really loved is you were talking about, now that I've gone off on a tangent, you were saying, maybe we'll just go back to this, that as you've gone on your journey, the medicine has been, you know, it's turned up in different ways. You wanted to talk a little more about the ceremonial aspects of the plant medicine. I missed that because I was intrigued with the others, and then I was running like a ninja in the night. So that's so. Do you want to go back to talking about the plants and how they came into your life and how they started to peel back the layers, maybe? Because you said your journey's more been that progressive awakening rather than I'm guessing like a boom. And sorry, there's so many other things you said as well. We'll come back. Thank you so much for sharing all of that as well. So vulnerable. So
welcome. Yeah, I love this. You know, it's like wherever the pieces or the breadcrumbs are dropped, we pick them up, and then it's like, yes, this is where we get to go with the conversation. So, yeah, there's so much. I mean, for a lot of people, I'm sure yourself included, it's like, I could tell you the exact moment where I was like introduced to it, but that actually doesn't feel true. You know, there's something untrue about, because once the relationship is developed, it feels like it's been there forever. You know, it's like, to some extent, when some of the experiences I've had, it's like, because the DMT in a lot of these cases is being unlocked, there's this feeling like nothing came in on a linear time at a particular time. It's like, it's hard to even remember when it started, right? So what was interesting for me, and what I will say, is that relationships have always been a really big catalyst. So most of my really deep learning, you know, within my sequencing is always, as soon as I enter a relationship, I know I'm going deep, right? Like something big is being catalyzed. And so that was actually the case for me. That was how I found plant medicine in the first place, so to speak, right? I knew it was there and I was waiting. But what catalyzed the yes was, I was at some Brendan Burchard, like this big personal development workshop, very rah, everybody's going crazy. And I walked outside, and I was going to Bali for the first time. I walked outside of this event. This was in San Diego, actually. And I ended up talking to these people, and I just ended up asking this girl, you know, like, oh, do you know anybody who like facilitates these like plant medicine ceremonies? You know, like, I feel like it's going to happen, you know, when I go on this trip. And so there was just, this began the synchronicity and the serendipity of like introducing me to the person who introduced me to the person. And what was really interesting, and why I shared the story, was originally I was going to sit with my partner at the time, right? This was 2 relationships ago. And so I ended up meeting with this shaman, and who I ended up sitting with for years and working with and being a guardian for ceremonies for years. But this first time meeting them was so interesting to me, because I ended up meeting with her. We sat down. She explained what it consisted of, these ceremonies. She explained all aspects. I leaned in like this to the conversation, and my partner leaned out like this and pushed her chair back. You know, it's like, she wasn't not interested. She just wasn't ready. She wasn't interested at all. It was not her time. I couldn't be more interested. I didn't care about any of the details or logistics. It's like I had just found a long lost relative. That's how I felt in my heart. It was like somebody was telling me about something that I had been waiting to hear for so long. And so as it turned out, I ended up sitting on my own in that ceremony. And it took a long time. It took about 1.5 years, I think, for her to finally, in her own path after the relationship had ended, to then go back and be guided to the medicine. And so I share that story because there was something we wanted, or maybe I wanted, to unlock even within the relationship. And so we said, okay, this feels like a modality. But the way it came to me was different than the way I ended up walking into the path was different than my original intention. And so it's a really good lesson. And sometimes we just have to trust that whatever we're guided to, it doesn't look exactly how we think it's going to look. And in a lot of cases, the rest was history. So I sat a few times with them there. I ended up sitting, doing guardianship with them around the world in different ceremonies, organizing private ceremonies. And yeah, that just continued, you know, different countries, different ceremonies, different medicines. Spent some time down in Mexico as well, with some soul family down there, also doing ceremonial work. And with different people in different circles, with different medicines in different ways. But for me, just like I wrote and shared in the bio, the primary medicine for me has always been the grandmother. Like at a relational level, my relationship feels very close. You know, that has always been my guiding force and my guiding light. And it seems that sometimes, just like what I said earlier, the thing which is happening, the experience which is occurring in my life, is not occurring because for any reason except because I need to have gone into this deep of a ceremony to unlock whatever is next. So, for example, about 1 year ago, I went through another really serious time in my life, another partner separation, and then a lot of other things which also happened, which I won't speak so much about, but a lot of things happened at once. And I decided to go right into ceremony because I trusted. It was the only modality of which, okay, I'm going to like sit with the grandmother now. And I know this is going to probably be the most intense sit, but there's nobody that I trust more than her. If this is going to be unpacked, I went in thinking I was healing from this relationship and what had been accrued in my heart and the heaviness I had to like release, the sadness I had to process around a lot of different things. But what ended up happening in the ceremony was very different. She ended up taking me deep into all of my birth trauma to heal all of my birth trauma. In one ceremony, I went through like 10 hours of just healing all of my birth trauma, which I had no idea was going to happen because it was completely different than what my intention was going to the ceremony. And so my point was that had been waiting for me for years. It had taken years of medicine work and deepening and deepening and deepening to get there and peeling back layers to even be ready to process that at an energetic level. But I could understand after the ceremony that the only way I would have met her in at that level and in that space was if my heart was ripped apart by the experience that had come into my life weeks before. And so I was understanding that like the experience that I thought was really heartbreaking was actually the only way that I would have gotten to the healing that needed to happen at that point in my life. And so I try to look at things this way. I try to open myself up to really see, and this is how I've always understood the medicines. It's like they come through and they're working not separate from, but in accord with like life. However life is happening, it's working together. And by the time you reach the medicine, because life has pushed you into that ceremony and like led you to that ceremony, to me, it's like, that's a beautiful thing.
Wow. Some of the things that you just said in there, what a beautiful understanding that you have. And I think this opens up an incredible discussion about how not to separate, you know, the medicine into one thing and life into another thing and relationships into another thing. Rather, it's this beautiful, almost orchestrated pathway that we're each on, and we've been given whatever it is in any moment that is the most beneficial for the evolution of our spirit, right? So there's this like harmonious dance between relationships and between whatever else is turning up in our life, whether that be medicine or a person just to talk to, or some sort of catastrophic event, or you know, it may be a book that falls into your lap, but whatever the tool is in that moment that's the most powerful that you resonate with, that can be like that. I really love that I would love to go here. I didn't know we would, but talking about heartbreak, because you know, a lot of teachers, and myself included, and I'm looking at the synchronicities here. The book that your mom is writing for me, I've called it Unconditional Love, and it's about heartbreak. It's about heartbreak and how through, you know, intense heartbreak, we can have a lot come up for us that really cracks and breaks what isn't us. And if we can somehow go through that, then there's this really deep spiritual, you know, discovery on the other side of that. Can we talk a little bit more about heartbreak? Because I think that's something that a lot of people experience, and we could even maybe shedding some light on how you go through something like heartbreak. How do you navigate your way through something so, there's a puppy, he's here to help. How do you navigate yourself through something like heartbreak? Because when you're in it, it is a moment by moment by moment by moment experience, and it's very real for people. So would you like that? Would you like to talk about that experience?
Sure. I think it's important. It's funny. You asked, would you like to talk about it? And I was just like scanning my body as you even asked, would you like to talk about it? And the feeling in my body was the same as if you asked, would you like to go through it? You know, like, would you like to go through heartbreak? And I was, no, you know, I don't want to go through heartbreak right now. I think I've had enough, right? You know, like, I feel like I'm breathing. I have some breath on the other side. I've reached the surface. And so I think I was just like feeling my body, how interesting it was that like the triggers we can feel in our body, because you asking that was almost like me feeling like talking about it. My heart would go back into it. And it's really interesting to notice that, because that's a closing that feels like it's not fully safe to even discuss, rather than an opening to let it all in. And so I guess I'll start there, because to me, that's the important piece. You know, one, I don't think there's a right or wrong way. It's like everybody has their own process, and whatever process you're taken through when your heart is broken is perfect because it's your own. And even if it seems like you're stumbling for way too long through it, I believe so deeply you need to stumble. Then we need to stumble, right? There's like something is going to be really deeply learned and embodied through the stumbling, even if it's frustrating and irritating and agitating and like, you know, whatever. So I think that connecting this to the medicines, and this is a really beautiful question because I haven't really thought about this. I've just done it. You know, I've never thought about this. I've never been asked this question. I've never contemplated this before in my life. This is the first time. So let's see what comes through. But what I think feels really true is I know, let me start by saying, for me, back to being a little kid, there was this paradox and dichotomy, or like for me, of I felt so deeply, like I was extremely, extremely sensitive, especially to energy. However, in being conditioned, raised, and growing up, for whatever reason, I actually didn't have a very easy time expressing my emotions. It was actually really challenging for me to express what I was feeling. And so I almost felt suffocated by my feelings. I felt so much, but it wasn't easy for me to express. Part of it, I think, just being like, that's conditioning around masculinity that I probably picked up. Part of it was probably conditioning from childhood. Part of it was probably conditioning from the collective and how we're raised. But at the end of the day, what I was experiencing was having a hard time expressing emotion, but feeling everything. So when I look at the heartbreak, just like anybody, I'm feeling to the point where, and like you said, the high highs and the low lows, I'm feeling to the extent where it feels like sometimes I'm suffocating, right? It's like it, and I'm sure we all feel this way. We can relate to, like, when you go through heartbreak, it feels like you're underwater. It feels like you're suffocating. What I do know is that something in my brain tells me, I know how badly you want to close off your heart and shut down right now. And so you better find as soon as possible the only thing which will help you crack this open. And so something which has really helped me is, and this came to me as you spoke earlier about, as you just started this question, I was really thinking of the Rumi quote, right? The wound is the place where the light enters. And you were talking about your book Heartbreak and needing to be cracked open in order to like have that light come through. And for me, I look at the medicine in a similar way. Just like how I shared and expressed this story, it's like I was put through this intense heartbreak, which I literally, at an emotional level, I knew in my mind I was going to get through it, but at an emotional level, I didn't feel like I was going through it, right? I didn't see myself on the other side. I just trusted and know that every time I go through, I get through. Every time I go through, I get through. But I didn't feel that truth because I was suffocating. I was underwater. But what I did know is that every single time it happens, I can remember the rewiring the medicine has done in my body, which is one, whatever you're afraid of is going to dissolve because fear is an illusion. So whatever you're afraid of feeling here needs to be brought to the surface, but what the actual fear is going to dissolve on the way. And number two, I know something more powerful wants to come in and through me. I know the heartbreak is here to help me. And I know the medicine is here to crack the heart open, but I know that me, as in my defense mechanism, my safety mechanism, because my body doesn't feel safe, will close the heart as I'm going through heartbreak. This is what I learned through the release of the birth trauma. You know, because for me, I was born 2 months early. So just to give some insight into this ceremony, I went through 10 hours of releasing all of the trauma around premature birth, all the chemicals that are injected into the body, all the false oxygen which is breathed in, all of the pain that the body has gone through, and like closing the heart, closing the shoulders, closing the chest. You know, for those people who were born premature, they might understand this or have gone through this experience, but maybe you've heard about this as well. It can be, birth trauma can be really, really intense, and it's so subconscious and unconscious, right? We don't remember it. So, but what I learned in that was how unsafe I felt to live life with my heart open, just because of how I was born. How unsafe I felt to live life with my heart open because of how I was born. And so the heartbreak literally was breaking the heart open, creating a crack so the light, the medicine, could come through, enter in, and then allow me to live life with the heart wide open. And that to me is the embodiment work, right? The medicine pries us open and takes the crack and breaks us, kind of like it cracks the coconut, and then somebody's got to, but at that point, it doesn't mean that it feels safe to walk forward in that way. You know, my experience has been, can I continue to leave this open, or am I going to close? Can I continue to leave this open, or am I going to close? And so that's been a little bit of my experience. That's how I felt, you know, supported. That's how I've approached heartbreak. I've tried to just give myself as much compassion and grace as possible. I really just rely on compassion and grace. I know I'm not alone. I know that if life is taking me really, really deep, then I'm going to go deeper. And so like, for me, everything is about just commitment. You know, I'm committed to transforming what I'm experiencing into service. I'm committed to being able to share something out of this. So what is it going to take? How much medicine am I going to have to drink? What modalities am I going to have to lean into? What work is here for me, so that I don't continue to feel unsafe in my experience, but I can actually create and alchemize something out of this. I can serve something out of it. So yeah, that's it. That's probably a long, expanded answer to your question.
No, it's perfect. And no, it's perfect. And I'm thinking how beautifully orchestrated it is to take you through an experience of, say, heartbreak, to go back to see that the underlying of that was, you know, what was happening as, you know, your trauma through the birth canal. And how often do we go through experiences in life and we think, oh, it happened because of X, Y, Z. And this is what's happening so much as people wander around. They're like, oh, this is happening to me because X, Y, Z. But really, it has nothing to do with X, Y, Z. That's just the story we're making up to try and make sense of why we're behaving in the way we're behaving. But sometimes it's so much deeper than that. And we don't always know why. You know, we don't know why. We can't find the root of that problem. And this is where I think medicine is incredibly powerful. Because if it needs to come up, and it can come up, it will. And it seems to happen in a ceremony where you're not actually having to dig, you're not having to force for it, you're not having to try and peel through layers of your own mind to figure it out. But if it needs to come up, it will. And it seems to come up in a way that maybe we can have bigger perspective on it. Again, because we're in this, we've got a puppy here, so that's who you can hear barking in the background.
Can I
but
share
it comes up in this way where we have a ability to see from a perspective that we may not have had otherwise. So this is one of the kind of magic, the part of the magic I see of medicine. Please. Yeah, please.
Okay, perfect. Because I have been feeling this so strongly lately. You know, you said something really powerful, which was, we never know why what is happening. And I feel like, because we're all tuning in, because everybody's quarantined right now, because let's acknowledge, you know, this coronavirus thing, and how is this conversation like relevant to it? I feel, and let me also share into the conversation. You know, I shared with Holly, I'm in the middle of a 21-day microdose, 21-day mushroom microdose. And so working with the ones and the teachers in that way, in a subtle yet actually very deep way, not a microdose in the sense where it's so subtle it's not felt. It's like at a level of which it's a daily journey, right? It's an everyday journey is present. What I'm really, really receiving in the beautiful way of how the mushrooms work, for those people, you know, who are here and tuning in and watching the replay, who do some work with mushrooms as well, is this ability to scan out and scan in at the same time, and sometimes be taught the lesson in a funny way, a whimsical way, a clever way, but at the same time being able to witness what is happening. And one of the things that I have been really sitting with is exactly what you just said, like how we collectively are obsessed with knowing why this is happening. How badly we want to know why, how badly and deeply and desperately we need to know why right now. And it's like, so I'm just noticing at a tangible, literal level, you know, people will either say, okay, it's this conspiracy theory, or on the other side, it's this thing from the news that I heard. which, by the way, we don't know which one is true. We don't know anything. We don't know shit. It's the truth of all of this. But we have an intuitive sense, and we can make true out of whatever we see, and we can connect as many dots from one story or the other, in my experience. And then there's a million explanations in between. And then outside of the seeking from the left or the right, there's all the distraction. So then we'll look, maybe if we don't want to know, we want to know why so badly, but then we distract ourselves and we go through social media and we go through this, and we just need to be fed information and consume. And it's the same conversation to me around, I would love to look at, why do we need to know why so badly? Like from a mental state, why is it that we need to know why? And it's part of a lot of what I'm receiving is, because we feel uncertain and unsafe, we still feel so much uncertainty and so much unsafety. The ego is like, okay, I need to find some security and safety here. Somebody give me an answer. Like I'll take anything, right? Not only will I take anything, then I'll share it with everybody, right? So now everybody else can feel really safe and really certain and really secure and really stable. And so I think it's this really interesting thing. It's like coming back to, what is it that do we really know? And at a deeper level, do we feel safe in the sense that we know nothing? Do we feel okay with the fact that we really don't know? Can we admit that we don't know? And what happens when we let go of the need to know, which is not even to say for the coronavirus, with anything in our lives, this addiction and obsession with knowing why, what happens when we let go of our addiction of like needing to know why what happens is happening, and just trusting that we're all being led through something on purpose and intentionally and for a reason. And it's not our job to know the reason. It's our job to trust, and then to stand up and to walk in the path that we know is right, where we'll be guided in the way that we know is true. And so, yeah, I just felt really compelled to like speak into that, because you brought into the conversation like the need to know why. And if nothing else, the plants are the best. This is one of the best teachings from all of the plants. It's like, I find it so funny. Sometimes we set intentions and I go into the ceremony, and then the plants are like, why are you being such a human? Why do you have these like words and these intentions? Like, what are these fucking intention things you're talking about? I don't care about your intentions, like I'm going to take you where I'm going to take you anyway. So quit being like, quit trying to control the situation with your ego, like you're going wherever you're going. So you better hold on tight for the ride. And I always laugh, when I receive that lesson, because that proves how fast our memory loss is and how strong our ego is. Because the very next ceremony, you walk in and you do the same thing. Okay, my intentions are this. And then the medicine's like, okay, yeah, sure. All right, great. So glad that those are my intentions. We're going this way. So for whatever it's worth.
I'm laughing for so many reasons. I can see Robbie's on here as well. And I know Robbie spent quite a bit of time like working with the mushrooms and different medicines as well. And I think Robbie put up a post the other day where there's a little cartoon of it. Was this you, Robbie? Where there's a little cartoon, of this character like lying on the ground, really freaking out, and been like, I know you've all been here before. So even with how much we work with the medicines, I know there are people who, you might be in your 100th experience and you don't know what's going to happen ever. It's such a beautiful gift of these medicines. You said something, I was thinking about this earlier with the need to know why. And I was just going to put this in my little apartment here. I'm in Mexico and by myself. And I was thinking, every question that we ask, we're going to find an answer if we're looking for it. We're going to find an answer if we're looking for it. And the mind is so cheeky, and the ego is so cheeky that it's often like, whatever I find, just give me that. So as you keep asking questions, you will keep finding answers. But interestingly, you'll find answers at the level of the consciousness that's asking the question, usually. And it will just roll you in circles. And you can end up with a head full of answers, even contradictory answers. And you can feel very overwhelmed and very confused by what to do. So yeah, maybe this is not the pathway that brings us to a state of peace. And maybe there's more powerful questions to be asking rather than why is this happening, and trying to get to the bottom of why everything is happening the way it's happening on a like on a 3D level at least. I think there are some answers to that, but not on a 3D level. It's not because so-and-so did such and such and so, and this is happening, because that's a rabbit hole to nowhere land. But talking about intentions, rather than maybe asking why is this happening, you know, I'm thinking about intentions, I'm thinking about how they totally get annihilated when we're in a lot of medicine journeys. But again, I'm just going to come back to Matt Kahn talking about intentions. It's given me a different filter of how to see intentions. It's making an intention to see what you want to see in certain things. So he said that intrinsically, nothing means anything. So what if intention was the decision to make something mean something that is in a higher alignment, that brings you, you know, something that feels good? So you could say, and I'm watching you do this, Adam, where you say, I'm choosing to believe that this coronavirus is a gift. I'm choosing to believe that my family, I chose my family and it was a gift. I'm choosing to believe that this situation is a gift, and you're looking for the gift in things. And I remember, you know, reading in conversations with God, which, you know, these little processes have landed with me a lot in my life. What you seek to discover in something is what you will find. And what did you say? You said something so beautiful. I was listening to an interview that you gave, but it was along the lines, it's like, when you start to see how you're being helped, this is something you said, and I wrote it down, but it's like, when you start to see how you are being helped by a situation, that you will receive the help from the situation. So maybe, I don't know which rabbit hole I'm going down here. I'm just so excited. Yeah, you said this beautiful thing. It was when you start to see how you're being helped or supported by a situation, you will end up receiving the support. When you start to see how you're being helped by a situation, you'll end up receiving that help. So, you know, maybe intentions, and I just want to, you know, jam out with you about this, because I know you have such a beautiful way of seeing things. But maybe when we set intentions like, I want this thing, isn't really the direction. Like, my intention is to, what if it was more like a decision that you're making of, I choose to see it in this way. You want to, I don't know what rabbit hole I've gone down here, but I'm having so much fun.
I just love that you wrote that down. I don't remember saying that at all, like not even a little bit. So your understanding of that is just as good as mine. You know, I don't even recall speaking those words. So I'm glad that they came through, but I don't have any recollection. So I'll share what I had this experience a couple of days ago, actually, with the mushrooms, and same thing. I'll sit, you know, the way I was at least led to this microdose journey, these 21 days, was set one intention at the beginning and then look at it every day for the 21 days. I actually didn't even resonate with that. So I didn't do that. I tried to just put down like a kind of an extrapolated intention of like, where am I at? But what was interesting is what came through for me that was more true than all of the words. Sometimes we have so many words, but they're all crap, you know, like so many words, but we only need like one, right? Especially with these medicines, like they don't need words. They don't operate with words. And so what I found that was funny was the only thing which was most true for me was my intention is to acclimate to the frequency of the medicine, of the mushrooms. And I found that has become my core intention with all of these journeys. It's like, I'll go and sit with the grandmother and say, my intention is just to trust you. My intention is just to see you, to like kiss you, to hug you, to connect with you. I miss you. My intention is to be with you. Whatever you choose to teach me, I'm not like going to be like a student who comes in the classroom and tries to tell the teacher what to tell me. I trust you, right? Like the teaching is going to be here no matter which chair I sit in the classroom. You're going to be gifting me something here that's going to be beautiful and incredible. So I'm not going to tell you how to run the show. However, I'm open to receive whatever it is you're going to give me. And so I found this has happened every day since, is I've just said, my intention is to connect to like nature. I'm not even going to make this like a serious thing, because I actually think the beauty and the joy I'm going to receive from connecting to the frequency of nature today is going to gift me something far more powerful than anything my mind could try to control the situation into leading me to receive. If I try to control my way into leading me to receive something in particular, that's going to be less than the energy of the earth, which is probably there for me anyways. So where are we closing ourselves off to receiving something simple by trying to set an intention to receive something specific. And sometimes is the thing which is simple more powerful at an energetic level, not at a mental level. We want stuff that's mental because we want answers, right? We want safety again. But where can something simple like energy be the transformative force? So I've been rolling with that intention personally lately of like, my intention is to connect to spirit, period, full stop. Whatever I learn in that space and that connection, I'm grateful for. Like, thank you so much, right? I know I'm going to be gifted. This consciousness is much higher than me. I'm going to be gifted whatever I need to be gifted. I'm going to learn what I have to learn. If it's going to be tough at a physical level, it's going to be tough. That means it needs to be. If it's going to be tough on an emotional level, thank you so much for allowing me to access these emotions. But other than that, I'm just here in connection. And what I love lately about intentions is noticing where we make it about the me as well. Sometimes I'll have a moment where I'll like write on an intention and say, actually, none of that feels important. My intention here is to pray. Like, my intention here is actually just to pray for the earth. My intention is to like allow a prayer to come through, which will create a ripple out of my heart. And I pray that that will create some impact for people who are suffering right now. So do I really need anything? Why am I asking for something from these medicines in the first place? Or are the medicines here to allow me to then receive something that needs to be like gifted out? Is this actually not even about us working as selves and individuals with these individual medicines, or are we just part of a web where we're meant to just be in prayer and make prayers?
Isn't that fascinating to even get to a point like, wow, I'm so blown away, where you get to the point where you're even questioning your own level of awareness around your own intentions, to ask where that intention is coming from in the first place, and how powerful that can be. Because if you could pick that up before you went into the ceremony, you could probably transform your whole experience of a ceremony by realizing, actually, that may not even be coming from, just bringing awareness to your own intention. And I think that we can even kind of unconsciously set intentions as we go into these things. Oh, I want this, or I want that, but you've got no, or this is my intention, but you've got no idea where it's coming from or why it is that you truly are asking that question. So what a fascinating thing to question your questions and to question your intentions around your intentions, right? Wow. And this brings up the question for me, and we've talked about it before on Psychedelic Sundays, but do you believe that your level of awareness is working with the medicine and therefore changing the experiences that you're having within a ceremony? And then the next question that I had, and I don't know where this one's going, these are very interesting questions, but as our perspective changes and our consciousness expands, do the rules of the medicine change? Now, I don't even know if you can answer that question, but I was thinking about this earlier. So as we evolve in our consciousness, does the rules of the experience of the medicine change at all while we're in it? I'm giving you spanners today, but let's see how it goes.
That's a great question. That's a great question. I really like that. I'm like feeling that for a second. I don't know. I don't, the answer is I have no idea. I have no idea. What do I think? I don't even think it's something I can think about if I try to put it into like a thought process, really. My instinct tells me that yes, the awareness changes the experience, and no, the rules don't change. I would say yes and no. And maybe because yes, our awareness, I mean, unless you completely dissolve and eradicate your ego, then it's still going to play a part, right? I think the awareness is going to be an aspect. The way I look at the way you asked the question, at least my understanding is like, will your awareness change the journey in either direction? If you have a heightened awareness, can it change the journey? I don't know, because is your heightened awareness ever going to be higher than the awareness and frequency of the medicine? Probably not, right? However, if your awareness is being impacted by like the constructs of your ego, yeah, I think for sure. I think we can like really seek and look for something, and that's why we try to like power versus force. We try to like almost guide ourselves through like, oh, now I'm in this space and receiving this. When now into the second question, does it change the rules? I don't think so, because I don't think the medicines really work by rules. You know, it's just my experience. They're expressions of the earth, right? It's like there's like some branch of the consciousness of Gaia, and I don't think she even has like rules. I think she just is, right? She just is. And so in a sense, the question that's really interesting to me is like, what are the plant's intentions for us? Like, forget about our intentions. They have their own consciousness. So what are their intentions for us? Why have they called us to them in the first place? You know, if we're trying to move our consciousness up or back, however you look at it, up or back to the plants, and that's why we're working with them as master teachers, why have the teachers called us to the classroom? Why have the teachers like called us to them as they do, right? We don't choose it. It chooses us. And so I don't think the rules change. I think there's a really simple, I think the answer is probably so much simpler, even if we get really philosophical. I think it's probably just like, if we all come back to the frequency of the earth or of Gaia, like there will be peace on earth, right? Like we will be unconditional love.
You know, I kind of want to jump in there, because after I asked the question and I watched where it was going, you know what was coming through me is, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. Who cares? What if it doesn't actually matter? You know, it doesn't really matter what's happening at the end of the day. We can philosophize around these things, and people have for all the time, and it's fun for a minute. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, okay, that's fun, but what's peace? What's peace and harmony? So if we're going to come back to is what our heart wants to vibrate at is peace and harmony, then maybe a lot of these questions just don't matter. And I again, you know, what a beautiful like bounce off each other here. Like, what do the plants want for us? Maybe it isn't about what we can decide. Maybe that's the whole challenge. We've been so busy trying to decide and figure it out and set our own intentions, and maybe the plants are such a highly evolved, you know, level of frequency. You know, I think nature is one of the most advanced, most intelligent forces on our planet. So maybe it is, you know, our turn to shut up and listen, rather than kind of dictating, and just say, okay, I come with my tail between my legs and on my knees, not thinking that I'm less than, but not thinking that I'm more, and just in this place that's really open to receive. Interesting, talking about being open to receive. Maybe we can go down this path. You touched on this earlier, that in fear, and when you came through the birth canal, we're talking about contraction, and we've talked about this before as well. So this like stance of being contracted seems to close us off. So when you're in some sort of, you know, whether it's a medicine journey or just a life experience, do you think that your posture and just the way you present yourself, and you know, even just down to how you breathe, plays a role in what we can learn and how we can access these things or access the information coming from nature? And I was going to ask before, when you are in your medicine journeys, it's kind of on the same theme here. When you are in your medicine journeys, you say you just want to listen as a student. Is there a particular way in which you do
that? Woo, good question. Is there a particular way? Gosh, I don't know. I'm going to wait for something to either come through or not at all on that one. I'm going to start with the first question, which is really interesting that you're asking this question, because I did yesterday we had a guest trainer come into my mastermind group, which is 9 months long. So we have a guest trainer come in each of the 9 months, and she actually talked about posture. We were doing a vocal activation and an opening, because we're trying to get the group to like express as they prepare to birth ideas through them. So this piece was like around vocal activation, but she actually went first into the power of posture, keeping the heart open, feeling safe, you know, open heart, soft shoulders, rolling them back. So I would say absolutely yes, but I'm also noticing that this came through all of a sudden 2 days in a row. And so the fact that you're asking it and the fact that she raised it means that I get to also pay attention to my own posture, right? Like that is also, I'm not taking that synchronicity lightly. There's something for me to also notice here, that this just happened within 12 hours of each other. At the same time, that exact question was like my all of 2018, maybe 2018, 2019 was exactly what you just asked. It was me leading up to, leading up to all that birth trauma ceremony, which was one that I went through, I had to go through all these ceremonies. And when I would come out, I would have people reflect back to me, oh, it's like your shoulders are really closed down and your back is like not straight. And I think you're going to have to really, there were some medicine brothers who really noticed this and reflected this back to me. Like, this probably has to do with birth trauma. You know, this is something you're going to have to open up, because it won't feel safe for you to like go heart forward into the world and shoulders back and like posture straight and tall. And basically the implication that makes you feel unsafe walking through the world. And so when you have so much to share and to give and to lead within, especially with your voice projecting out, with, as a musician, your singer, your voice projecting out, absolutely posture and breath as a guide, but also as a result of, you know, it's like as a way to walk through the world, even more importantly than being in the ceremony itself, in the ceremony of life. Where is our posture pointing to and being an indicator for where we're closed off within our hearts, because we have to shield and protect it with our shoulders, right? Or our rib cage. And so, yes, I think it's really important. I'm trying to remember your second question. That's how much I didn't have an answer for it. So maybe you can remind me. What was the second part of that?
I was, you know, I can see where I was coming from in the second question. I said, how do you, is there a way in which you are a student to the medicine when you're in the journey? And
listening.
I raised that because, I was thinking a lot about posture, and I was also just reflecting on how in some of the ceremonies I've been in, I've played a lot with posture. I've watched when I've collapsed, and I will sit up and I will open up my shoulders. Sometimes I'll stand up. I know that there's been moments in my ayahuasca in some of the more powerful journeys, like some really powerful journeys, I've watched myself collapse. And then I remember having these moments where I said, stand up, like just get up on your feet. And I would get up on my feet. And even in the what we would probably deem as fear at first, just standing up and just really paying attention to the breath and the posture could change everything about how you were allowing that experience to come through your body. So I was looking into, you know, inside of your journeys, because we don't talk a lot about what we're actually doing inside of our journeys. But I do know there's come a point, you know, in ayahuasca where I have the choice to stop and reevaluate how I am perceiving something sometimes. And I can completely adjust the experience that I'm having inside the medicine. So, you know, a lot of the time we don't go in, we just talk about the experiences we have, but I've also noticed that I can really play with how I am turning up within a journey that changes whether I'm afraid or listening or downloading information or, yeah. So that was anything that you try and do within your ceremonies, and it may just be as simple as coming back to your breath. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's bringing up a whole interesting thing for me. First of all, I don't lay down. I never lay down, you know, so I don't know if my posture is incredible. I don't know if I have like impeccable posture, but what I do know is from the very beginning, like it's very rare for me to ever lay down, but that was just kind of the way that I was like taught to be with it. Was like, to me, that's not even necessarily me guiding my journey. Again, it's like me learning, like me receiving from me, not me sitting up in the chair in the classroom, rather than like slouching down and laying down and relaxing. And what part of us feels like we need to lay down, like I'm too tired. There's the difference between resting and collapsing, even from trauma response, even from like your nervous system. Sometimes even the words carry energetic charge, right? You can collapse, your field can actually collapse. Or there's a difference between that and saying, okay, I really need to rest. And the best thing I can do to honor my body is to rest. So I think there's probably a distinction there, and it will just, of course, it depends on the person. But for me, I feel like the sitting up is less about guiding with the breath and the posture, and it's actually more about the discipline. Like I'm learning discipline, I'm learning commitment. I'm learning presence, you know, and sometimes that's the biggest thing. I'm coming back into presence with, instead of being a passive participant and just expecting myself to be given something. Sometimes, and since you asked about receiving, sometimes the key to receiving is being present in the right time at the right place to receive it. And so the microcosm is the ayahuasca ceremony, where the best lesson that comes through, the little gem that drops through, is only about to drop through if you're sitting up and you're present and you're listening really closely with like an impeccable presence to what's happening in the entire circle. Where maybe you wouldn't have gained and received that if you were lying down, because maybe you were a little foggy and you felt like you needed to sleep. But where are you telling yourself that you need to sleep in your life when actually that's not what you need? You know, that's being like cloaked by feeling like you can't handle it, you can't sit with it, you can't be with it, you can't be up straight. And so yeah, I think there's a gift in the art of receptivity, which is what I've learned a lot about, you know, specifically with the grandmother, the art of receptivity, specifically around everything, specifically around money, around abundance. But like, what am I here to receive? I'm not here to control, again, with my intention, the journey that I'm going to go on, but I know I'm going to receive something beautiful. And if I expand my capacity to receive inside of this ceremony, then when I exit the ceremony, by default, by nature of what the work I've just done energetically, I've created space, I know I'm going to be able to receive more as I exit. But sometimes it's the same thing with receiving money or love or anything. You're asking and praying and holding intention to find your partner and your beloved. But if you don't act and get into the right time at the right place to be able to be open to receive, you probably won't receive them. We can ask for money, but if you don't take action to be standing there within the energetic exchange, the person can't be able to like give it to you. So much is available to be gifted and give it to us, but we're not sitting up straight to receive it. And that's the same learning I feel that comes through in the teaching with the grandmothers, like, or with any of these medicines, you know, like it's just trying to allow us to have the discipline and to trust of like, all right, I'm going to give you everything that you've ever wanted, but are you going to be like sitting and willing to receive it? Because sometimes when you look around, everybody else is sleeping.
Oh man, you know, so for anyone listening to this later, I think that one of the things that you could take from this is, if you are working with medicines or anything in your life, see if you can catch yourself at different times and just question what kind of state are you in? Are you in a receptive state? Are you clear right now? Are you present right now? What a beautiful practice just to drop in a couple of times a day. Like, am I present right now? Or am I not here? Am I half asleep? Is my mind somewhere else? Because, you know, this is, you're talking about synchronicity. That's not the first time someone said in the last week for me that awakening happens when you have a very present, very clear mind. Which is interesting, because we have this idea of like, we want to get rid of the mind, we want to get rid of the mind, we want to get rid of the mind. But in a sense, the mind isn't something we get rid of. It's our attachment and judgments of thought. It's a very clear, open, and interestingly calm, present but calm mind that seems to be, you know, the magical soup for a lot of receptivity. So it's not grasping, it's not pushing, it's not running, it's not half asleep. And even, you know, it's wonderful you brought up sleep here, because I know a lot of people, especially in journeys, they start to fall asleep. But it's not just in journeys that I've seen this, but say sitting in a really highly activated energy vortex, I see a lot of people potentially start to fall asleep. And I remember a whole year or more of my life where I started to feel very tired around quite large concepts or quite a lot of energy. And I have, you know, there's a whole year where I'd be like, I'm not falling asleep during my awakening. Sit up. And again, coming back to posture, I remember having these moments where I'd have to sit up and be disciplined, exactly what you're talking about. And, you know, just come back to the breath and the posture and be like, I'm not falling asleep right now. I'm just going to let tiredness be here and pass. And sometimes it works. So yeah, for anyone listening, play around with this. See if you can't catch yourself and just question, question maybe where your posture is or where you're at in the moment, or if you're in the receptive mode. You've brought up Esther Hicks here, who says, universe already knows what our desires are. It already knows exactly where we're going. It's just about being in the receptive mode to seeing it, because it's all right here, right now. It's just whether you are aligned and receptive to seeing it. So I love that you're bringing that up. You know, something else, like I want to just channel this down into, I know you are talking about creative alchemy. I want to just dive a little bit into your understanding to how art and music and creativity is also part of this magical journey, and how it's really been part of your magical journey. Because not only, you know, have you been an explorer with medicines and you're an amazing coach, but you also make music and you're a massive advocate for creativity, a channel for, you know, your awakening. And there's a lot happening in our world with creativity right now. Do you want to speak a little bit into creativity and music?
Always. I'm always excited to talk about creativity and music. Yeah. Going back in. Cheers, guys. Cheers. Cheers, Rubin. So, there was something before I go into the creativity piece that I love that you just said, Holly, around the receptivity. And it just brought something back to our conversation around the intentions, which was, you know, for me, I just want to say, for me sitting up straight in the ceremony was my receptive state. But for other people, you can intentionally lie down and receive too. I think the point here is I've learned so much through these ceremonies around giving and receiving. Like, am I able to serve and be a guardian, but also receive my own journey? Like what level of presence is required to be a guardian for the space and to be in service, like constantly, but also be present enough to receive your own journey through that? How can you have both at once? How can you give and receive at the same time? Where's the balance? And so my feeling around the intention sometimes is it can be very masculine. It's like we're trying to give the intention. We're trying to like project something forward, not project a projection, but project an energy of like, okay, here's what's going to happen, rather than the feminine flow, allowing ourselves to be receiving. And so to me, there's a really strong element inside of this work with the plants of like, the feminine is receptive. Can we go into these ceremonies in a pure feminine receptive state and allow ourselves to be moved so deeply? And then the key is, can we then synthesize that with our masculine doing, action and embodiment and execution of like, okay, I'm going to take whatever I received deeply here and I'm going to turn it into tangible form. I'm going to create from it. And that's where I would start the conversation also around creativity, because when there's not so much to really say here, even because it's just a process. But for me, creative alchemy is like the words I use to describe, okay, you've been through a really tumultuous process, plant medicine or not, you've been through a really tumultuous process. Life has taken you through a death cycle. All these experiences, like I said in the beginning, have been gifted to us. So since they've been gifted to us, can we create something beautiful out of them? Can we create art from this place? Can something that can be of service and benefit to all come through me, so that what happened to me in my life didn't happen in vain? But along with it not happening in vain and happening for a purpose, we're all artists and musicians and creatives. And so one of the things, the medicine's unlocking that creative state. It's unlocking the expression. It's really not doing on so much unlocking. Even as I'm saying that, is it really true? It's like, is it unlocking, or is it just that it's clearing and fleshing out the vessel and purifying the space so that the channel opens up? So then we're open to receive what wants to come through us. And all of a sudden, before you know it, somebody in the ceremony is singing who hasn't maybe sung a song since they were 4 or 5 years old. And so you have to ask yourself, it's like that was inside of them all along, but there had to be a really deep clearing and cleansing and cutting away of the cobwebs before that could come out. And so what are we doing to purify the channel? What are we doing to turn whatever our experiences is into beauty? It's why artists and musicians, some of the most beautiful music and art that comes through is from these, what we call depressed states, from, you know, turbulent times in life, from enormous ego deaths that may happen, from depression, right? Deep rest, a place of deep rest, a place of deep receptivity, a place of like really being open to receive whatever wants to come through. And then the art is a way for people, for me. So my intention with this album, which we'll release in a few months, we hope, it's finished, but it's getting finished. And so one of the intentions was, can I allow, and all these songs came through from ayahuasca ceremonies. Every single one of these songs came through from ayahuasca ceremonies. And when people listen to them, they have really deep emotional experiences. That's what I've witnessed as people hear it. And I know that's happening because I know they can feel the frequency of the medicine in the music. And it's not a medicine song, right? It's just a song that's channeled poetry through me that I've received, that's explaining a really deep part of my life experience. And sometimes the songs aren't even explaining my own experience. It's just like spirit, the medicine, the ayahuasca, the spirit, the consciousness of these plants comes through and puts these words into form so that when somebody hears the song, they can they have the same emotional experience they would be having if they drank the medicine? Can one song be like a cup of medicine? And I feel like for us, it might be a long time before the whole world sits in ayahuasca ceremony, but it could be tomorrow when every single person receives a piece of art that was a reflection, a representation, and a channeling from the medicine. And I actually think it's one of the ways that we help people awaken, is we meet them where they're at. We quit trying to force this one way on everybody and realize maybe we're just here to be vessels to allow the medicine to come through us in the ways that can meet people where they're at. And that might be coaching, it might be creativity, it might be art, it might be music, but that feels beautiful to me. It feels real.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on it. And I don't know if you saw like too much about what we're doing with Earth Pulse. Where obviously we're going to stream this onto our Earth Pulse channel, and there's a lot of people here who are part of the Earth Pulse. We've got, I think Cookie King is definitely Diego, and Celeste, and see who else is on here. Yeah, these guys are part of this collective of artists and healers. And we have movement on here. We have visual artists in this group. We have beautiful, beautiful singers and dancers who are also in their own journey. So we see as a collective, they're so in tune with the healing, beautiful power of art and expression. This leads me into a question. I'm curious with this one. Why do you think right now so many people who are already really tuned into their own art and their creativity, that amps right up as we're going through the coronavirus? It seems like a lot of creatives right now are creating and creating and creating and creating. Like the other day I got on the phone with my friend who beads, and he's like, I'm just beading the shit at everything. And he took me around his apartment. There's like thousands of beads. He's like a madman with beads. And he's like, I just can't stop. He's like, I just can't stop. It just keeps coming and coming and coming. And I have, there's visual artists on here, and they're just painting and painting and painting. Are we going through a global ceremony of purification? And is that why so many people are tuning in and just have this art dropping through their system and flooding out of them right now? What's your opinion on this?
Ooh, I love that question. It's interesting. I never thought about it. I guess for me, I just assume that one of the really obvious answers is people have more time. I think there's probably truth to that, right? Like for creatives, and so I work with a lot of creatives. And so one of the things I think is really important is to how do we create space so that there's spaciousness to create the art in the first place? Because the art is the form of abundance, which is going to create more abundance. But the reality before that, for a lot of creatives, I think at a tangible 3D level, is financially, it's not easy to dedicate all the time to creating their art. They wish it was, but it's not. And so I think part of what's happening is because of the nature of what has happened. Okay, great. I know creatives, the person who's recording my album, he's like, man, we're at some level, we're ecstatic because creatively, this is so good for us. Creatively, we can just sit and do what we always want to do anyways, which is just sit and record a whole album. We can allow so much music to come through during this time. And so I think it's about creating space. I think that's part of it, but I think there is probably some truth to what you're saying. If this creative alchemy happens when we face off with more of our emotions, I just did a post about this, actually. I'm posting it today. So it's funny you're bringing up this creative alchemy thing. And it's all about this topic, and so what I write in and I express in that is this is an opportunity because we're all inside, we're all quarantined, we're all having to face off with our shadows. If we choose it, this is a chance for people to choose facing off with all of these things they might not be with, that they're easily distracted by their jobs and by anything else that comes in between them and looking at some of these things. And so whatever we're going through means we're going to create something really beautiful and epic. Like if we're going through something this deep collectively, what are we going to create? And so I believe we also have enough time to create foundations and systems and new structures right now. Whereas otherwise we'd be too distracted. Oh, I don't have time for that. I need to go to my job. And so I think there is two things happening. I think one, people tangibly have created, like space has been gifted to them to do whatever they want to do. And number two, because they're being given space to face off with what they're feeling, it's naturally alchemizing. And a lot of these creatives, just like what I think you're alluding to, it's like they're already in the process of facing off with these things and saying yes to that anyways. And so maybe more is streamlining through, maybe more creativity is coming through, and who knows, maybe this is just, again, a part of allowing people to receive whatever medicine they need to be able to go through it. It's almost like documentaries. I find like older people, especially, in my experience, older people especially, but maybe anybody, sometimes you'll find out like their way into transforming their consciousness around food or around plant medicine or around anything was the first thing that happened was they saw a documentary. It's like a very easy portal and gateway. It's like the gateway drug for actual drugs, right? The documentary is so helpful in that way for the public. And so I'd like to think that music and all forms of visual art and everything else is the same way. It's like we're being asked, we're receiving the call and we're responding to the call of like, okay, now's the time to share your art because not everybody else is going to be ready to awaken in the same way. So let this be their gateway and their portal.
Yeah, so anybody who's watching that, I mean, I can feel it now. It's like, just do the thing you've always wanted to do. This is what I'm like with a lot of artists. This is just what they've always wanted to do. And maybe it's two things, maybe it's three things. Maybe it's more time. Maybe it's some sort of creative alchemy happening. Maybe it's a collective belief of like, this is a creative time. Maybe they're feeding off each other's energy. Maybe it's all the posts going up. Who knows? Maybe, again, it doesn't matter. If it feels good, keep doing it. And we definitely know that art is beautiful on this planet. And we have a collective knowing that art, music is transformational, especially if it's coming through, your channel. But again, I remember hearing once upon a time, can art ever not come from that place? Even if it's been channeled through like the dark, depressed, angriest time, like it's coming from that channel. That's what art is. So this is why all art has this place in the world, whether it's, the representation of your deepest depression or the representation of your highest experience. I mean, I was just watching Alex Strait the other day, going from like depressed and morbid, putting brains on a plate and throwing up spaghetti on them as an artist, to this incredibly transcendental, like God consciousness experience. And both of them are equally, they're so powerful for different people at different times. So if we're channeling our experiences, it seems, through any type of creative mode, that's really powerful. The last thing I want to kind of drop into before we go, and I think it's, again, a topic that is so important, especially for creatives, is abundance. And I know we'll go like abundance, and then I want to talk just a minute about your coaching program. But what does abundance mean to you? What does abundance mean to you? And how can people be utilizing medicine or art or whatever other tool to be able to kind of tap into their own wellspring of abundance? Because this is something a lot of artists and healers especially are just feeling, how do I find that abundance within inside myself so that I can be more of myself and share more of myself? I know you have a lot of passion around this, so.
I know I don't, to the extent I don't even know where to start, to the extent there's so much, I don't even know where I would start. I'm going to share once we're off of this, maybe shortly in time, and you can share it into the group. I had this channeling come through actually while I was cooking medicine a year ago. I was cooking medicine in Hawaii and obviously drinking and cooking the medicine at the same time. And I actually asked, asked the grandmother, can you teach me about abundance? I want this day. This was one of those things, right? One of these intentions, which actually came through, because it's almost like a micro dose. It's not so, you're not going super deep, but like you're in it. And so one of the things I received, but I'm going to share the whole transmission with you, and I'm making it into like a recorded a video. So maybe you can share it with the group too. And I'm happy for them to just be able to like work with that. One of the pieces of it was, when I started hearing and listening, was the greatest form of receptivity is like receiving all of yourself. Like receiving all of yourself is the greatest form of receptivity. And so within that, there's a lot of power. You know, within those words, there's a lot of power to me. And that's, to me, that would be how I define abundance. How deeply are we open to receive ourselves? How much of ourselves are we receiving? If you create art, do you fully receive your own art if you're expecting other people to receive it? Is the art exactly the art that's going to bring you the highest level of excitement and joy, detached from whether or not people are going, you know how to get people to buy the art? Maybe that's not even the point. Maybe you just need to elevate yourself up to a point of feeling really excited, really joyful. And so the greatest form of receptivity is receiving all of yourself. There's a lot in there. So abundance is self-worth. Abundance is how much do you value what is coming through you. Abundance is how easy are you making it to receive. This is one of the ways I love defining abundance, one of many. How easy are you making it to receive? Like I said earlier, it's like, if you become aware, if your awareness is that, okay, for me, I need to sit up straight in the ceremony in order to receive what I need to receive. So if I'm not doing that and I'm laying down, I'm not making it easy to receive something that wants to be given to me. That's exactly how money works, right? How easy are you making it for somebody to give you money? Or are you just assuming, based on conditions and beliefs, that it's hard to sell art? Is there a story that it's hard to sell art? It's hard to be creative and make money? That's not true at all. But you might not, you haven't even gotten to the point of being able to assess that from a clear place, because you're not making it easy to receive. You're already, the story that it's hard to make money off the art means you're not sitting up straight in the ceremony for somebody to be able to like, hey, like, Holly, I want to give you this like $100,000. So, you know, can you receive this? Can you take this? Can you invest this? Right? When we're so non-negotiable with our vision, it's one of the things we do that makes it really easy to receive, right? If you're constantly telling people you believe in the vision so much, for example, I want to start a $5 million center, and I'm telling everybody that, I'm making it really easy to receive that $5 million for the center. I'm making it really easy for my vessel to be able to like carry that into execution, because I'm carrying an energy of confidence within my being. And so I would say, one, at a really tangible level, this is just, you know, beyond mindset and into practicality for people who are listening that are creatives. How do I make money off this art still? This seems very esoteric. Okay, great. You might not be here to sell your art. You might be here to teach people how to produce their art. So for example, the musicians I see that make lots of money, they're aware of the fact that they're not trying to make their music make money. David Hawkins' power versus force, right? They're not forcing the music to be the thing that makes the money. They're realizing that, wow, if I'm here creating beautiful music, why don't I teach people how to do, like this person yesterday, my friend who did the vocal activation? Why don't I do vocal activations to unlock, I'm here to unlock other people's voices. I'm not here just to create my own art. That's an expression and a channel. That's a result. That's a tangible result. That's an outcome. But I'm here to be a conduit for the process. So if you're creative, can you teach people the process rather than trying to force the outcome to be the thing that is receiving the abundance? And I think when that thing shifts, a lot can shift in terms of money, you know, and I noticed this. You brought up my family in the beginning. My dad's an artist. I don't know if you knew this, how my dad's an artist his whole life. And so I noticed once he just never found a way to make his art like make money. And it's like, as much as he tries, any angle he takes, it's not meant to be. It's not meant to be like a money-making thing. It's meant to be there to be his fuel for his happiness and his fulfillment. It's meant to be there to like bring him joy. But the moment creatives put too much pressure on their creativity to produce money from it, it suffocates all the creativity out of the expression itself. And then they end up becoming frustrated and agitated and a little bit lost and confused, from my experience. And so my job usually is like in the coaching is, okay, how can you create space so that the creativity, just like a child, doesn't feel like you're a helicopter parent over it, right? And just feels like you are giving it space to be itself and to breathe and to like just be for the sake of being, just be a song for the sake of being. So I'm not trying to make any money off of my album. I just was like so clear that the world needs this music and that even just I need to create this music, that whatever's going to happen through that album has a life and a consciousness of its own. Like I don't even control that album, right? It's on its own, doing its own thing at this point. It's in its own timing. I need to just trust it, just like I would trust a child, because I birthed the album. And so as creatives, we're birthing things through us, and it's not on us to control the flow and the outcome of it, or to pressure it into being something it doesn't want to be. So you have to become aware, is like, would it feel good for this thing to make money even in the first place? Or am I forcing this thing to try to provide for me when it doesn't even want to provide for me? Maybe would it feel good for me to teach people the process of how to be a visual storyteller, or the process of being a verbal storyteller, or the process of a musician, or the process of how to facilitate sacred circle, or whatever is the art and the expression. So yeah, there's a lot in that. I could go on forever on this topic. So I'm going to pause.
Yeah, you know, it's so fascinating. My dad's an artist as well. He's an artist and he's a musician, and he's spent his whole life making art and music and never made any money. Or that's just what he does. He's made something like 60 odd albums now. He's in the moment of producing a book, and he makes nothing from it, nothing. But I've had to drop some of my attachments of wanting to be the savior and to help, you know. But I've seen that it has just been a channel for his happiness, and that has changed his life, and that may be it. Something else you said that I think is a beautiful thing. I don't want to bypass that. Is that if you were in a relationship with a person and you were trying to pressure the person into providing for you and into doing that and the other, you know, would it want to? And if you were in a relationship and your partner was like, you've got to do this X, Y, Z for me, would you want to? And maybe it's the same with our art. And we're putting a level of pressure on our art, and we're treating it like we treat relationships, you know, like you're the solution to my problems, right? You're the one who has to make me happy. And maybe it's the exact same energy that when we put that into a relationship, it often suffocates the relationship
Totally.
as well. So,
Totally.
so it's that same type of relationship, no matter where we're having it. And if we could shift again our perspective on this and treat our art like you treat our lover, or how we would like our lover to treat us, that may change the whole experience that we're having, both in our work that we love doing and in our relationships. That seems like something very deeply profound, you know, in what you're saying there. The other thing that, you know, the other thing I want to bring up was just abundance quickly. A very good teacher of mine said, we're always in a state of abundance. It's just sometimes we're in an abundance of lack. So what are you looking at? You know, where's your focus? And if you can just shift your focus out of your bank account and realize we have an abundance of air. You know, we have an abundance of, you know, we might even have an abundance of judgmental thoughts, but we're abundant. So if you can find the things in your life that prove to you that truly there is abundance. Like, I was looking at a rice bag this morning after I watched this very powerful documentary called Human, and this woman was saying they're looking in rat holes to find grains of rice, you know, and they do this for days on end to try and find food. And then I'm looking in this bag and I'm like, I have an abundance of rice. It's all relative, but it's, you know, and I could feel that, like how grateful I was for that. So if we're looking for abundance, just like if we're looking for anything, we will probably find it. So maybe taking the pressure off everything to bring us happiness, take our attention away from what we perceive is lacking, and find those areas in our life where there's abundance. And that should pretty quickly lead to gratitude, I think. So that might shift the whole gear. That may shift the gears for people a little.
Yeah,
hopefully that's a little bit of help as well. Just
there's a really important piece, I think, that you know, I'm just thinking now about your dad the artist, my dad the artist, all the artists in this conversation, and it's like, from what I've heard in a lot of experience, that conversation, there's this other conversation around, yeah, I get all that, and why does it have to be this way? Like, can't we just live in a world where we just get to create our art and we don't, because at the end of the day, there is a financial, I agree from a mindset perspective so much on shifting into where we're abundant and seeing that they're feeling the air and noticing, and that will shift our mind out of the bank account. But at the end of the day, the reality is we have to look at the bank account. We can't bypass the bank account. Like, we should want to look at the bank account. And so I'm like thinking now of this question of that people have is like, but yeah, but why does it have to be this way? Why can't we just live in a world where I can just like be paid abundantly just to create the art? You know, I don't, it's not that I want to pressure it. It's just, that's the only thing I want to do. I don't want to do anything else. And I think there's something important here around, can we get creative in how we help other people make money, which will help us to make money, which will allow us to create more space for our creativity to come through? Like, can we even use the creativity itself, which is just energy coming through an open channel? Pure creativity is just the energy force coming through an open channel, and then the confidence and the courage to express it out to the world, right? It's like the two-step process. The creativity comes through, it actually goes through the heart and purifies. The creativity we're receiving is also healing us, I believe, right? The songs and the art channels through us. It's not just for the world, it's for us first to heal us. So it's coming through an open channel, it's healing through the heart, and then we have the courage and the confidence to express it out of us. And what I think is a really interesting question and conversation is, can we then channel that creativity into how we help other people, how we serve other people, so they can be more creative as a means to heal and to serve other people, creativity as their healing modality and their service and their expression, fully expressed. That then puts us into a place of like power, allows us to like acclimate back into a place of power. And then we're able to give our creativity space to just be itself, but just like you said, without pressuring it, like in the partnership to like give something that it doesn't really want to give to us. It's like, at the end of the day, there's still the question, because we're still in this 3D paradigm, at least in this moment in this year, where money matters and where we want to have abundant bank accounts and be abundant in our art and see the abundance all around us and not focused on any one thing at once. And so, yeah, as creatives, do we not have the greatest advantage to be able to be innovative and entrepreneurial with even how we make money in the first place? Like, where are we being black and white and non-creative with our approach to being abundant in the first place?
It caught me out there for a second, but I've got the gist of what you're saying, and I'm going to re-watch it because I know that's incredibly important. And I think the gist of it is, as creatives, can we find a way to navigate, you know, ourselves into a different relationship with money and to support each other? And I think that not only are you feeling that, but especially the people that I'm around, we're feeling that push. Like, we need to get creative and get out of our old ways of maybe looking at this to help each other out. And I definitely feel like there's something really, you know, if this is a puzzle, I feel like there's something about helping each other in this. Yes. And utilizing each other. So it's like, in one way, we're almost been pushed back together, and it's like, okay, can you collectively come together and find a creative way that's going to benefit the whole? Which is also shifting us from this I mentality into a we mentality. And I often think, if we were God and we fractalized ourselves into individual pieces, there's going to become a part where we're actually being forced to click back in together so that we can evolve. And money feels like a very, very powerful and important conversation. And I agree, I don't think we should be bypassing it. I think having too much attention on lack definitely doesn't work, but definitely not bypassing it, because there's some very deep spiritual vitamins in it, and it is also connected deeply with our worth. And
I love what you just said about helping each other. There's like some juice in the beginning of the like with the medicine here again, and intentions. I just saw like a web with the whole conversation, which is, if we removed all of our human intentions from this mess and this conversation, and we just said, what are the plants here to do? And we just assumed that the answer was helping us and humanity to unlock our creativity. Let's just assume that there's enough evidence that that is true, right? There's enough evidence in our circles that that might be the actual reason the plants are here, to help us come back to be creative beings. That's our whole purpose. The purpose of life is beauty, and the purpose of beauty is life. Really beautiful line from the GPs, right? There's no purpose beyond life except beauty. And that means our purpose is just to create beauty. And if our purpose is just to create beauty and the plants are here to help us unlock our creativity, wouldn't us being the best possible stewards for the plants be to help other people in our circle and networks and tribe unlock their creativity to its fullest? And isn't that the way to make money? Because how would it be any other way? If that's our highest purpose, Shouldn't we just find a way to help every single human being awaken their creativity and forget about everything else?
And here's the best part of this. Even if it's not true, if nothing intrinsically means anything, but we get to decide, isn't that a fucking beautiful decision to make?
Sounds like fun to me.
Doesn't that sound like one of the most beautiful intentions we could set for what this whole life, dream, whatever you want to call it is? Because if that's what we believe it is, that's what we're going to experience as, as being that. Sorry. I want to come back to, at the end of the day, we're the creators of our reality, and we get to choose. We get to choose. So why not choose it to mean the most beautiful thing you could possibly think? And if that's coming together to help each other unlock our creative potential, to help other people unlock their creative potential so they can be the most beautiful expressions of consciousness that they can be, and that's our purpose. Holy motherfucking Jesus Christ. That's something I want to experience, and that's the life I want to live.
No more looking, no more seeking, no more looking. We got it. We found the answer. People will always ask, like, what's your I don't know, they ask in a different way, but people ask, like, what do you love doing the most? And that's so different for me than, like, what are you, like, what's your purpose here? What's your, sometimes it's the same, but what I guess what I'm getting to is, I'm in my most powerful space and unlocking through conversations like this, through coaching in ways like this is why I'm here, to help people like really activate and turn this on and rewrite and be able to like build something powerful around these gifts and this creativity. And if you ask me what's the most fun thing, I'll give you the same fucking answer every time. Sitting in a circle with my guitar, playing songs, like creating music with the people in the circle, co-creating music, and listening to people activate their voices and sing for the first time, and like open up and like fully let go and let it rip. And so I feel so much joy in that. Like, to me, that is the answer. I can't possibly see it any other way. I felt so much connection and joy and oneness in those circles where no medicine at all, just the medicine of music and sound and voice. And that leads me to believe that this is why we're here, to help people unlock their voices, to help people unlock their creativity. And so it's like you said, if none of it meant anything, for my own life, I'm a yes to that path every single time.
Yeah, me too. And I think everyone else on this call is feeling the same calling. So, I'm just looking at the time. I can't believe we could do this for so much time, because it's such a beautiful, juicy, all day. What an incredible conversation. Where can we find you, Adam? Because I know you've got some really beautiful offerings. I know you've got a 9-month mentorship that's running right now. So do you just want to give a quick shout out to where we can find you? And then we might wrap this conversation up for now, but I have a feeling more in the future.
I hope so. It's so fun. I always love jamming, weaving the plant medicine conversations like this with everything else. I love how it all comes together. So I told you before, I don't have like even a my website's not even active right now. I wasn't guided to do that. My 9-month program is an incubator for creatives and spiritual entrepreneurs. However, it's active, so it's not enrolling anybody at the moment. There's 30 people from all over the world in that. It'll probably start again in September. And I have no idea when I'm going to even open that up. So I'd say for now, like I said, I have a free group where anybody can jump in, at least in the moment, called The Collective. And I'm actually doing life coaching. I do life coaching on Sundays in there. And then it becomes like a community of like co-creation and wisdom sharing. And so, yeah, I just offer support for free through that space for anybody who's there.
Amazing. Is anybody who's on here, if any of you guys have any questions briefly before we jump off, you're more than welcome to come off your microphones and ask them. I'll just give you a moment to do that if you want to say anything. Otherwise, we will shift into closing it up. But it's been such a joy, and there's such good topics right now. Art, psychedelics, plant medicines, awakening, music, creativity, abundance, heartbreak, all the things we didn't get to talk about in school, but I know that as human beings, we all go through, we all question, we all wonder if we're alone in this process, and we're definitely not, even though it feels like it sometimes. So, you know, if we can just be authentic and share where we're at with each other and share a little bit of light in that way with the world, because everybody here is such an incredibly beautiful soul. All souls are beautiful. All souls are coming from source energy. And every single one, although we come from the same place, has a unique way of expressing that. And nobody else is going to do it like you. Nobody else is going to do it like you. So find the discipline, find the courage, find the mentor, find the method, find the tool, find the medicine, find anything you need that's going to support you on your journey to becoming everything that you want to be. I think listening to you and having this conversation, it's evident to me that you've really put yourself on that path where you have just used every single thing you can, every tool that you've had to support yourself on this journey and to pick yourself back up again and again and again. In order to do that, it has been such a pleasure jamming out with you. Thank you so much, Adam.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me. So fun. Such a blessing. What a joy.
Alrighty, well, we'll leave it there, everyone. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. So much fun, always. And if anybody needs anything or wants any support through this time, join Adam's group, the collective, yeah?
Yep.
Sounds incredible. You guys are all on Earth Pulse anyway, but if anyone else watches this in the future, we've got Earth Pulse Collective, which is also a collective of artists and healers, and we're all here to support anybody through this awakening process in whatever way we can, just by turning up and sharing ourselves. So thank you, Adam. Thank you, everybody else. Love you all so much. Such a pleasure to be on planet Earth with you at this time.
Blessings. Thank you.
Gracias, Pachamama, of course.
Gracias, Mama.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys. I'm going to stop the recording.